having me.
So President Trump said recently that there a lot of bad options are on the table. Do we have any idea what the administration is thinking when it comes to their response to what's going on in North Korea?
Well, just this morning, I think it was a striking moment when he was giving that press conference alongside the Polish president, and he chastised North Korea for what he called very, very bad behavior, said he had pretty severe things that he's thinking about, but that doesn't mean I'll do any of them. And in fact, he didn't say, he said he would not tip his hand as to what the U.S. is considering. So at least from the White House, the answer is no. We don't necessarily know what the plan is here. We know that there are some options, and like you said, not particularly great ones. You've got more sanctions on North Korea, which, how much more can you sanction the country? You've got sanctions perhaps on Chinese entities, but that creates a diplomatic issue, of course, with China. And then you've got military options, which the fear is just how quickly they would escalate, knowing that North Korea and South Korea have had guns, let alone nuclear weapons, pointed at each other for decades.
Yeah, and what would you go after? It's trying to find a needle in a haystack. One, you'd only hurt the civilians, right, the innocent people who were there. So you're not going to do any – he doesn't care how much damage he has done to his country. So there is no fear from the U.S. because he doesn't care about losing, right? The man has no bottom.
Well, he certainly cares about survival, and we've seen that from Kim Jong-un's family throughout the decades. But that's what makes this so tricky. I mean, if the U.S. wants to execute, say, a tactical missile strike on a North Korean weapons facility, well, that's a tricky one because there are so many of them. You don't necessarily know where all the munitions are being kept, and North Korea has shown now through tests over the last year or two that it's capable of quickly rolling out a missile from many of its different stashes around the country and launching it. Meanwhile, if you're the U.S. and you say, let's just go after the leadership structure of North Korea, let's just go after some top generals or even Kim Jong-un himself, well, that's really what Kim Jong-un cares about, right? Is his personal survival, and that could escalate very quickly. If he thinks there are no other options and that the U.S. is coming after him, well, then, there's no holds barred.
What about friends and acquaintances in the region? China, Japan, South Korea, Russia. What are the options of them finally getting tough with their neighbor?
Well, President Trump has said to various degrees over the last year and a half or so that China really should be the major player here, that China does have leverage when it comes to North Korea. The question, of course, remains is whether China actually has any interest in using any of that leverage. North Korea is a thorn in the side at points. It's the embarrassing cousin. It's a lot of things that is a pain for China, but also it is a convenient distraction sometimes when it comes to the U.S. and to other countries. We can help deal with North Korea if you just give us, but don't come after us on these other diplomatic issues, right? I mean, it provides a bit of leverage for China when they say we're the only ones who can really rein in Kim Jong-un. And so President Trump said he understood that after meeting with 10 minutes for President Xi in China that North Korea was complicated, that he thought he might be able to extract some favors from China. So far, none of those favors have yet to appear.
Yeah, this is all coming on the news that North Korea launched an ICBM. Do we know for a fact it can reach Alaska? And how much of this is just sort of wild speculation as to how dangerous this missile system is?
Well, it's speculation, but it doesn't necessarily sound too wild. Basically, as analysts took a look at the trajectory of this missile, it only traveled 500-something miles. To be an ICBM, you've got to travel almost 4,000 miles. But they took a look at the path. It went 1,700 miles up into the atmosphere, re-entered, and came back down. If you flatten that out just a little bit, that puts you around that 4,000-mile range. That could indeed reach Alaska. And so that's what's been so worrying to analysts, and that's why you've got U.S. officials, Japanese officials, not just North Korea, saying, yes, this is an ICBM.
That's Brad Melke, ABC News correspondent following the North Korea story. Brad, great work. Thanks for checking in.